Karen barges into the restaurant, demanding a VIP table and insisting she knows the owner. The twist is, I am the owner, and by the end of the night, she found herself in tears with a $4,000 bill due to my payback. As she storms in, she shouts that she should be given the VIP table set aside for celebrities, completely unaware that I'm the one in charge and have no clue who she is. I decided to play along and see how things unfolded. During dinner, one of her friends asked if I thought my life was meaningless just because I worked as a waiter. That's when it hit me. I had nothing to lose, and I was ready to take my revenge. Here's what I did. This all took place around the Christmas and New Year period. My grandparents immigrated to Canada from Italy in the 1970s and established a restaurant. After they passed away, the restaurant was handed down to my parents, who expanded it significantly over the years. I have been involved in the restaurant since I was 15. As my parents aged, they eventually retired and became snowbirds, heading to Florida for the winters. They transferred ownership of the restaurant to me a few years ago, retaining a small percentage for additional income alongside their savings and annuities. Once I took over, I modernized the establishment. I remodeled the restaurant, updated the logo, and reached out to local and national publications for advertising. I also invited food critics, bloggers, and vloggers. Initially, the response was slow, and I worried that the loan I took out for these improvements might have been the biggest mistake, risking the legacy of 3 generations of my family's business. However, things turned around when a semi-famous local YouTuber featured us in a video, which became the catalyst for a surge in customers and reviews. Eventually, our business increased 5 to 10-fold, even on Mondays, transforming us into a hotspot for major events where it became common for celebrities to visit. On those busy nights, I even arranged for special high-profile chefs to come in and cook for our guests, which was quite costly. During the holiday season, we were extremely busy, to the extent that people had to make reservations as early as July to secure a table in December. It took years of hard work to reach this point. When the restaurant gets busy, I don't just remain in the office. I'm out on the floor, doing whatever is necessary, whether that means greeting guests, bussing tables, or even mopping the floors. On nights with high-profile guests or events, I'd be in a blazer, managing everything. One evening, a group of 6 women entered. 5 of them appeared to be in their early 20s, while the leader of the group looked to be in her mid-20s. My best guess was that she was either an older sister to one of the younger girls or a sorority sister to incoming college freshmen. As I was greeting guests at the door, the woman known as Queen Bee Karen was telling the younger girls about how amazing our restaurant is, mentioning that the food is fantastic and that there might even be celebrities around. When she reached me, she requested a table for 6. I asked for the name under the reservation, to which she replied, "Oh, I didn't make one, but that's okay. The owner is a personal friend of mine. He always keeps a couple of tables open for special guests, and we can have one of those tonight." While it's true that many high-profile restaurants do reserve tables for notable guests, I had no idea who she was, and she had never spoken to me about any of this. I recognized she was trying to bypass the reservation system, but she couldn't have picked a worse person to approach. I politely informed her, "I'm sorry, but we cannot seat anyone without a reservation as we are fully booked." I didn't want to embarrass her in front of her friends, so I refrained from saying I was the owner and that we had never spoken before. She then loudly instructed one of her friends to take a picture of me, claiming she would speak to the owner to ensure I was either cleaning toilets or fired by the end of the week. The other girls echoed her sentiments, saying things like, "Yeah, kiss your minimum wage job goodbye." I couldn't tell if they were genuinely naive or complicit in her antics. Queen Bee Karen continued, "Look, you can either give us a table, or I can make your life very difficult. This isn't worth losing your job over." She relentlessly belittled me, asserting that I must not be important if I didn't recognize who she was and insisting that I should only respond with yes or of course. Having had a long day, I saw 3 options. 1. Reveal my position as the owner and call her out. 2. Give her the table and move on. Or 3. Teach Queen Bee Karen and her entourage a lesson. I opted for the third option, motivated partly by my own personality flaws but also by a genuine desire to show her the consequences of her behavior. I smiled and said, "Of course, ma'am. Please follow me," leading her to one of the 3 tables we reserve for potential celebrities. I apologized for any inconvenience and agreed that it would be simpler to give her the table. I also informed her that the first 3 rounds of drinks would be complimentary. I seated them and took their orders personally. As they settled in, I informed them that I would need one of their credit cards and IDs for our records and assured them we would return them before they left. Queen Karen handed over her cards, telling the other girls that she was treating them for the night. I took their drink orders, explaining that due to the busy night, there might be a delay in their food. The girls were primarily concerned about their free drinks, ordering 3 rounds. Eventually, they called me to check on their food, all the while maintaining a rude attitude. I offered to check on the food while asking if they wanted any more drinks. They ordered 2 additional rounds just as the appetizers arrived. By this time, they were all quite drunk from having consumed so much alcohol on an empty stomach, having only eaten salads throughout the night. As more food arrived, their drink orders continued. What they didn't realize was that they were at our VIP table, which alone cost several $1,000s just to sit at, although I didn't charge them for that. What I did charge them for were all the extravagant cocktails they had throughout the night, with the exception of the first 3 rounds. The VIP menu also included exclusive high-end options, such as white truffle, black caviar dishes, and specially imported West Coast oysters, and didn't display prices. At one point, I started to wonder if I was going too far, thinking perhaps they didn't know better. However, my resolve was strengthened by overhearing comments from one of the girls, who asked me if I felt worthless for only being a waiter, and hearing from one of my staff members that the group was discussing how to mess with me so that they could get free tables in the future. They also remarked, "He's cute, but I'd never date a waiter like that. He's such a pushover." Throughout the evening, there were many similar remarks. I decided to stick with my lesson for them. By the end of the night, each girl racked up a bill between $500 and $600. When I handed Queen Karen the total bill of $4,232.23, including tax and tip, I had never seen anyone sober up so fast. Her demeanor changed from laughter and giggles to nearly crying. She called me over immediately, asking if this was some kind of joke. I took the bill, reviewed it, and said, "Oh yes, I apologize. I'll get you the correct bill in just a moment." She felt a wave of relief, thinking she had been handed someone else's bill, called me an idiot, and resumed chatting with her friends. To be fair, I did make a mistake by forgetting to add her 8th order of a dozen oysters, which costs about $120. I gladly returned to add that to the total. When I returned to provide her with the correct bill, she exploded again, going completely wild. I simply asked if there was anything on the bill that she hadn't ordered. Both she and the other girls, visibly shocked, scrutinized every line of the bill, including the initial entries showing their original 3 rounds of drinks marked as complimentary. They pulled out their phones and meticulously went through each item line by line for what felt like the 100th time. Clearly rattled, Queen Bee Karen announced, "Just a second. I need to use the washroom." A part of me suspected she might try to pull a dine and dash, leaving the other girls with the bill. I subtly reminded her that we had her ID and credit card, though I didn't want to make it obvious that I thought she was considering fleeing. About 10 minutes later, she returned with fresh makeup on, clearly having been crying, and launched into a fabricated story about how terrible the food and drinks were. She demanded that I cut the bill in half, insisting that the other girls would contribute, even though she had initially claimed the night was on her. Then, as if struck by a light bulb moment, she again referenced her relationship with the owner, presumably hoping to persuade me to grant her request. Holding back a grin at this point, I firmly told her no, I simply couldn't alter the bill. In response, she whipped out her phone and showed me a series of text messages from someone labeled as my restaurant's name owner. I realized that during her time in the bathroom, she had probably changed one of the other girls' contact names and deleted previous messages to craft this new narrative. After reading the texts, I clicked on the contact info and informed her, "That's not the owner's cell number." Her response was, "He has multiple phones for business, and of course you wouldn't know all his numbers." At that moment, I couldn't help but think how she had thought of everything except that I was the actual owner. I proposed, "How about this? If we call him and he agrees to take 50% off the bill, I'll do it." Her reaction was one of yelling and screaming, which attracted the attention of the few remaining customers. I realized it was time to put an end to this situation. I shifted to a less accommodating tone and said, "Cut the crap, little girl. You don't know the owner, you've never been here before, and if you keep yelling, I will call the police." Her demeanor changed as she tried to defend herself. I countered her weak comebacks by stating, "My grandparents founded this restaurant, and my family has been running this place for generations. I have worked here my entire life. I am the sole owner of this restaurant, and I have never seen you, heard of you, or made any promises to a stranger I don't know." The other girls were frozen, unsure how to respond, while Queen Bee Karen began to cry. I continued, "Now, I gave you the table you wanted, one of our specially reserved tables for high-end clients, which I didn't charge you for, and I provided you with 3 rounds of free drinks. If you don't pay your bill, I will call the police and hand them your ID." In tears, Queen Karen reluctantly signed the bill, while the other girls scrambled to pull out their purses, contributing whatever cash they had, which amounted to only a couple of $100, with promises to pay her back more later. 2 days later, a man stormed into my restaurant, visibly furious, and asked one of my bartenders to speak with me. I had been in the back office for a while, so he waited a good half hour for me. It turned out he was Queen Bee Karen's father, and she was with him, keeping her head down. I escorted them both to my office, where I showed him highlights from the security cameras, which provided excellent audio quality since they were in the VIP section, where we needed to keep thorough records due to past unrelated incidents. After I showed him the footage, highlighting their comments, orders, and everything else, he stormed out with her, berating her the whole way. I haven't seen or heard from either of them since, but the original bill I gave them, which didn't include the $120 oysters, is now framed on my desk. Just to clarify, I didn't incur as much overhead on the table and the 3 complimentary rounds as one might assume. The table was initially meant to remain empty, so I didn't lose anything there since I had no expectations of gaining revenue from it in the first place. Additionally, the costs for the food and other drinks more than offset the loss from the 3 free rounds. I considered sharing this story on a nuclear revenge forum, But after reading some of the accounts there, I felt that making this girl pay a few $1,000s and teaching her a lesson didn't quite measure up to the extreme forms of revenge others have shared, which often involve life-altering consequences and losses in the tens or hundreds of thousands. From op experience, I learned that standing firm in the face of disrespect can lead to unexpected outcomes. It's essential to maintain your integrity and remember that no one is above the rules, no matter how entitled they may feel. This incident taught me the importance of humility and the value of treating everyone with respect, regardless of their status. Ultimately, it's not just about the money, it's about creating a welcoming environment where everyone feels valued. So, the next time you find yourself facing a Queen Bee Karen, remember that you have the power to stand your ground and teach a valuable lesson, both for yourself and for others.